in the fire business. It might be something that you, as you're going into situations, you might think, I just need to pull myself together and just do some box breathing. So a technique for you to take away. So what I'd like to do is share a little bit about my journey. And I actually worked in corporate America for 30 years. This year I just stepped out of corporate America. So you'll see that episode 1, which obviously suggests there was more than one episode. Episode 1, I attempted suicide in August of 2014. So I had a number of triggers that led up to my suicide attempt. And I lost my dog, I lost my mom, I thought I needed to be doing a different job, I was totally stressed out. I called my boss at 6 o'clock in the morning and said, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to quit. And he said to me, what are you talking about? Are you going to quit? I was like, yeah, I've got to do this piece of work. And he's like, Elaine, that piece of work that you've got to do is something that we give new hires, associates to do. I was like, I know, I just can't do it. And I was in the hotel room and I'm pulling out my hair and just going, I can't do this anymore. I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time. So he said, you know what, this is not like you, you just go and take some time. So I was like, okay, I'll go and take some time. So taking time actually led into being off work for almost 5 months. Taking time meant that I went into total isolation. I only allowed my husband and a friend in. I lost about 30 pounds, all my clothes were hanging off me. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to go and see a doctor. I didn't want to go and see a psychologist. I didn't want to go and see a psychiatrist because I'm a Christian and Christians don't do that, right? And I don't want to take medication. So what happened was I finally went to see my doctor. I went to see a psychologist. I went to see a psychiatrist. And one day while my husband was out at soccer, I got my pills. I wrote a letter. And I was literally like, I can't believe that this is what this has come to. I really can't believe I'm like, Lord, I'm crying. I can't believe I'm actually going to take my own life. I Googled, do Christians actually go to hell if they commit suicide? And I'm using commit suicide at this point, but that's the wrong language to use. And obviously Google told me yes and no. So I was like, I'm going to hell anyway, so I might as well tell myself. So I found a seat, and I sat there, and I had my pills, and I put them to my mouth, and my husband texted me and said, I'm on my way home. I was like, oh, what am I doing? Threw the pills away, hid my note, my husband comes home, I'm like, hey love, how are you? We go to our neighbours for dinner. I'm at dinner thinking, this is my last supper. The next morning I woke up and said to my husband, this is what I tried to do yesterday, but I'm going to do it now. So I ran down the stairs and he was like, called my best friend, called my psychiatrist, and I'm like trying to get into the drawers to take knives to kill myself. So I went to an ER, and obviously you go and see somebody in ER based on your level of trauma and based on priority. So I went into the ER. As soon as I got in there, I was seeing a nurse, a doctor. I got taken, all my clothes, stripped naked, and then scrubs put on me in case I did anything with the clothes that I was wearing. And then this doctor was telling me that I needed to go into a hospital. And I was like, don't know. And he's like, this is a new hospital. It's like a resort. It's like a hotel. And I'm just like, do you think I'm stupid? No, I'm not going. And so basically, I went to the hospital, which was actually a psychiatric unit. So I was in the psychiatric unit for 10 days. I call being in the psychiatric unit actually being in a resort, because it was really nice. But you had to line up and go to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There was police officers there. It was pretty strict. So I was in the psychiatric unit for 10 days. Then I got released and I was in outpatient for 3 weeks. And then I went on a cruise. And what I didn't know at the time was that medication actually takes 6 to 8 weeks to kick in. So, you know, it's not like taking ibuprofen and you like get rid of your headache. So my medication kicked in and this light came on and I was like, oh, I can go back to work. Went back to work, went really back with, so I'm talking about me, so I don't know where you stand in your faith, but God had told me, like, mental health advocacy. And I was like, no, I'm not having the mental health label, no. And then so I was like, okay, I'll have the mental health label, but I'll continue doing what I'm doing. I work for PricewaterhouseCoopers, like one of the top consulting firms in the world. I'm a management consultant, going to all these clients, really performing, but really trying to like be the best that I could be. During that time, we came to Florida because my husband was a soccer coach for Orlando City Youth, and we came to Central Florida. So what happened last year, I took an overdose. So 2020 was a bit of an unusual year, right, for most people. The beginning of the year, I was working on a client site, actually just in South Florida, and it was a really stressful project. And I got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was overwhelmed, and I was overcommitting, and I wasn't setting boundaries, and I wasn't saying no. My dog died. I hope my current dog doesn't die too soon, because like, it's kind of like this common theme, dog dies, I do something. So my dog dies. Sell my house. I had this amazing home on the lake, huge, it was great. Sold everything, got rid of all my stuff. We end up in an apartment and then we end up in a rental home. The rental home, I was only in there for about a month before I took my overdose. I took my overdose in September. I isolated. I couldn't get out of bed. I had really great friends like Laurel, and another girlfriend who were contacting me daily, and Laurel would say, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm in bed. I can't get up. She's like, we're going for lunch. I'm like, okay. I'm like literally 5 minutes before she pulled in the driveway, I get out of bed. So something happened, I saw a bill, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just gonna take my pills. So this time I actually took the pills, I ingested an entire bottle of antidepressants. As soon as I took them, I texted my husband and said, I just took all my pills, but I'm okay, don't worry, you don't have to worry about me. And I contacted my friend who's a doctor. Don't worry about me, but I've just taken all my pills. And Laurel calls me. What have you done? What have you done? I'm calling ER. I'm like, I'm okay, I'm fine. I just took all my pills, it's fine. So I go to the ER. I'm in the ER for 3 days. Then I go to a facility, a residential facility this time, for 2.5 months. And I come out. And then we're in January of this year, I get released, and I'm trying to like figure out what am I going to do with my life. I was like, oh my goodness. And God tells me, mental health advocacy. I was just like, no. And it was only in April of this year that I fully committed to do mental wellness advocacy. I thought, you know what, I'm not living in shame. There's so much stigma around it. I want to be able to end the stigma. I want people to be able to say, I'm a suicide survivor, as much as they can say I'm a recovering alcoholic. So here I am today, sharing my story with you. So what did I actually learn through all this? So I learned that people attempt suicide not because they want to die, it's because I didn't have a reason to live. I didn't know how to live anymore. I was just like so stuck. Support systems are super important, whether it's one person or two. So Laurel was my support person, thank you. Listen to the professionals. Remember, I didn't want to speak to the professionals, but you know, professionals are here. You're here, you're professionals. You're here for a reason, right? You want to save lives, I want to save lives. We've both got the same mission. Medication takes 6 to 8 weeks to kick in, I already told you that. So many people, my doctors didn't actually tell me that. I was like really surprised. I thought it's like, take ibuprofen, get rid of your headache in 4 hours. I'll be okay in 4 hours. Self-care is really important, and we're going to talk a little bit more about self-care in a moment. And for me, what was important, what I learned is God never leaves me nor forsakes me, even if I don't listen. And He's always there, even if I don't think He is. So that's my journey, and that's what takes me here today to share with each of you, because we're all on the same mission to save lives. So this is me in March of this year. So I thought I'd broken my arm. Now, did I actually sit there and pray and ask for my arm to be healed? No, I immediately went to the ER. And so, I wrote a book. It's my banner, My Crazy Summer, which is about my first attempt. And it was really about the conflict between medication and faith, because there were so many people in the faith who would tell me, your faith is not strong enough, you need to pray more. And it really wasn't that, it was because I had a chemical imbalance, right? And so that's why doctors are on this earth. So, yeah, we need to trust people. So, is it health, is it wellness versus illness? So we talked about self-care and the whole body. Well, here is a fundamental difference between mental health and mental illness. We all have mental health, we all have physical health. Some of us may have a physical illness, some of us may have a mental illness. At the end of the day, some of us may not have a mental illness, but we all have mental health. So, whole person wellness, you'll see that there are 8 dimensions. So it's not just the mind and the body. There are 8 factors that come into consideration as you think about the overall whole person. I could talk for hours on each one of these specific points, so for the purpose of time is just to show you these. But there are a couple that I really want to call out. So the first is physical. So you'll see that there are a number of sub-dimensions under physical. Nutrition is really important. So something that I've just recently learned that I didn't know is that most of us think that all our serotonins are in our brain. They're actually not, they're in your gut. Like 90% of your serotonin is in your gut. So you are what you eat. So it is really important to eat healthy because that actually affects your brain. Sleep, it's really important to have sleep and healthy sleep, like 8 hours sleep and good sleep. If you're going to be able to work at your best. And social is really important. And that's, I think, part of the problem last year was that we were isolated and we didn't have the opportunity to be social. So I think this is really important, all these factors, and it's because, the last time that I looked at me, my whole body, my head and my body are still connected. And it's really interesting that, we can talk about anything from here downwards, but as soon as you go from here upwards, people don't want to talk about it. And yet people are happy to say that they have diabetes, but they wouldn't tell you if they were on any mental medication. I just find it fascinating. So again, my mission is to stop the stigma, at least reduce it for one person. So what's wrong? So here's a little